I'm already meeting objections, Pavan. Anyone who's like, well, why should I work for free? I mean, I have a certain value and I have a certain amount of self
Yeah,
worth. What are you doing instead? That's my question. What have you been doing instead?
yeah,
Might as well make some use of your time and do something really, really good with it. And it's all part of your portfolio build up, and it's gonna be one of those things that will last you for years. And guess what? You're gonna get better and better and better because you're gonna get access to real feedback. Not like
yeah,
you thought the post is great, but she thought it was crap. Okay, what didn't she like about it? You cannot get that feedback by living in your own head and practicing on your own on medium.com. You know what I mean? You get real
yeah.
feedback loop when you actually get in there and do it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 27th episode of our podcast, Pepper Spotlight. My name is Pawan Rochwani. And in this episode, we're talking about something that's very, very frequently asked to us on across our social media platforms, which is about how to land a dream client. If you're a freelancer, I think all of you have tried and tested sending a LinkedIn message to some of the best CMOs or marketing professionals from the best brands. But I'm not sure if that has worked or not worked for each one of you. But what we are going to talk in this conversation and in this episode today is about how to land a dream client or a dream job as well. I'm sure a lot of freelancers also have full-time jobs on the side. So that's also something that we're going to cover in this conversation today. This episode was ideally not supposed to be released as a podcast episode, but we did this as a LinkedIn live session with Sonal, who has worked with some of the best organizations across the globe. And the conversation that we did over LinkedIn live was so insightful that we decided that we want to release this as a podcast episode as well. So you're going to listen to this conversation where I'm speaking to Sonal about how to land a dream job or a dream client. And I think this is going to help every kind of freelancer. If you have just started, if you have been freelancing since quite some years, or irrespective of what category of freelance you do, it if it's graphic design, UI UX design, content writing, copywriting, anything that's there, I think this is going to help you really understand some of the basics of things that you need to check before going out there and look hunting for job. This conversation was pre-recorded, so you're going to hear my conversation with Sonal from here onwards. Sonal, first of all, thank you so much for doing this conversation on a Tuesday with us. I think this is something that we have been looking forward to talk to you since quite some time, but very glad that we are able to do this today. So first of all, thank you so much for giving us your time today.
My pleasure. I'm happy to be here.
One very important question I want to ask, and I want to understand the whole dynamics of how the hiring, system or ecosystem works. Organizations are always saying that we aren't able to hire like the best of the people. It's really, really difficult for any founder or let's say director. For them, hiring is like the toughest part, right? I mean, to get the right set of people in your team is really difficult sometimes. Like I'm going through that currently. I know how difficult it is. At the same time, every candidate or let's say professional and individual is also seeing that I am not able to find the right organization to work with or team to be a part of and things of that sort. Where is the where what bridge is missing between both of these two sides? What really is happening? Where is a loophole where organizations are not able to hire candidates and candidates are not able to hire, like I mean, get good organizations or get great teams to work with?
Okay, wow. You started with a big one. The I'm going to do my best to help here today because I heard you say dream job and life-changing conversation. There's a little feeling of pressure. So I'll tell you what. Every single thing we think or say or do is coming from our lens, right? So when companies are complaining, it's coming from their lens, and then candidates are complaining. So I have to encourage that thinking again and again, because opinions and facts the world we live in today, Pavan, WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, opinions and facts are always taken as the same thing, right? If I'm not able to find people, talent is in short supply. Is it an opinion or is it fact? It's an opinion. Talent is everywhere. The point is, as a company, I'm going to piggyback on the color because we have this little background behind our video. It's purple. In the career world, in the HR world, we call it the purple squirrel. So, are you looking for the purple squirrel, which means I want someone who has an MBA and 10 years work ex and done DevOps and done this and done that? You know what I mean? Like they just throw so much into that list of their dream client that that person doesn't exist. And the closest thing I can tell you to that is when we are in our teenage years and we're like, my ideal guy, like my ideal girl is going to be like this and she's going to look like that and she's going to be from St. Stephen's and Dell. So there's a dream and then there's reality, right? And then
Yeah.
it's like disappointment big time. So I think companies need to be, and I don't like to say companies again and again because it makes them sound impersonal. It sounds like a building. A company is an organization, it's a bunch of people. So it's important to say and be realistic. Is this nice to have or is it a must have? Like, I can't live without this particular skill set. Okay, let's put that in there. And it's a startup, right? So maybe in a startup, I need someone who can wear multiple hats. That's very common. So you want that sort of hands on type thing, get in it, good attitude. That's a must. Is the masters really necessary? Be realistic, because otherwise there's the two errors in recruitment, which I call the alpha error or the beta error. Alpha error is saying no to the right person, which is so expensive. And beta error is saying yes to the wrong person, which is even more expensive, because we all know what happens with a bad employee from day one. They cause nothing but trouble and there's a lot of damage control. So organizations have to be very realistic about what they want, what they need. Is it dream, is it reality? What get heads out of the clouds? I don't mean this to you specifically, but a lot of organizations that complain, I feel like sometimes it's worth looking in the mirror and calling them out. And you're seeing this happen in the United States with the hospitality industry, where restaurants are shut down because they're like, we can't find yeah, maybe because you're paying such a minimum wage and people have realized there's actually more to life than working for $7 an hour. On the candidate side, it's very interesting because you need to know what you want. And I saw some comments in here, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for that. I love those type of comments because when you're starting out, or you've been doing it for 10 years or 15 years working, you'll be like, this period of unemployment, that perhaps if you're in a period of unemployment, there is this external pressure and it's so high and it's internal, and you'll be like, I'll say yes to anything. Just give me a job. I want an income. So the organization that needs you thinks that you don't have focus. So it's got to be nailed down. Like, what do you want? You got to dial that down really, really well. And I get about 10 emails a day from people. I don't, I mean, at the end of the day, what I'm reading between the lines is they don't know what they want. And you, Pavan, if you're hiring, you can see that immediately and the person looks confused. So there is a, that Venn diagram. This is what the organization wants. This is what the candidate wants. There is an overlap. And the best way to meet that overlap is, and this is a great tip for anyone who's looking for a job, informational interviews. So ask a friend who knows somebody in Pepper Content, or ask in that company or that company, and make an introduction. The person on the other side will be like, why should I meet you? Like, what's in it for me? But if a friend asks, the chances of saying no are a lot lower. And as a candidate, you've got to be very respectful of the person's time. Say, can I have 20 minutes of your time? And not like, I'd love some career advice. No, God, people don't have time. People don't have time. People are struggling. Those who are lucky enough to have a job, everyone is struggling. There's a lot of demand. There's a lot of pressure. I would love to speak with you for 20 minutes on this particular aspect of your career, and how did you get here, and if you know somebody who could help me out, and then stick to 20 minutes. I'll have people do that, and then 20 minutes becomes 60 minutes, and it's so disrespectful, right? So this is called exploratory interviews, informational interviews, whatever you want to call them. Treat them as if they are a proper interview. Come prepared, be smart, look confident, dress the part. And if that person is smart, be like, oh yeah, I just met Mihir. I think I have a role for him. This is how conversations begin. Now imagine if you do this 4 days a week, 5 days a week, you put it in your diary, and people will say, I don't have time. Yeah, what are you doing? A lot of us who are between jobs are wasting time between Nutella and Netflix. So we were going to talk about discipline in a second. So this is the short answer. We can talk about it more later, but informational interviews are the secret weapon for so many conversations that start from nothing and get somewhere. It's a little bit of a numbers game. You have to be more present, visible in all these places. We can talk about content creation later, but this is a great way to start. And for a company, you're getting to meet people as well. You're getting to see what the market is looking like, what are candidates looking for, what is my employer value proposition, EVP.
Yeah.
They are wanting this. Do I have that? Because now you're going to see this war for talent. It was there in pre-COVID as well, massive hiring. It's coming back now because candidates are like, oh, wow, I do have options. Like I just spoke with a client who's got 3 offers. It's not unusual. It's happening more and more. So both, I think, need to step up their game.
Yeah. And I think that's very, very relevant. Thank you so much for answering that, because it's something that I've been wondering since quite a few days now, because, we have not been able to find the right talent.
Yeah.
There are a lot of applications, but the right fit or the person that we would ideally want to be. So maybe we want to clear the air around what this role is going to be about, what would be the exact responsibilities and things of that sort before we post again about it. So thank you so much for answering that. The second big thing, and I think this is something relevant to somebody putting in the comment that, should your own portfolio be present before you're looking for a dream job or something of that sort. Now, how do you ideally think of a portfolio as? Do you think a LinkedIn profile can be considered as a portfolio, or let's say having a website? Let's say how for designers there is Behance or these different kind of website. But let's say in general, what do you consider a portfolio as? Do you think if a candidate shares their LinkedIn profile to a talent person, will they accept it as a portfolio, or what do you think can fall under the?
It depends if the LinkedIn profile is a breathing, living thing or it's dead. It depends, right? And I don't think this is only applicable to designers. A lot of people say that, and I do agree. A portfolio, you want to show something, when you're looking for a website design, graphic design, you want to show, right, what you've done. And that speaks louder than a resume, a CV. However, anyone, and I say this to my clients, anyone who wants to stand out, whether you've worked in finance, you worked in accounting, like, oh yeah, what portfolio? I don't have anything. This is such... Everybody has done something, right? If I worked in HR, or if I worked in strategy or business development, maybe there was a merger or an acquisition, and I was one of the people behind the scenes that made it happen. Talk about it. You're on a Zoom meeting, for example. Excuse me, can I just take permission to share my screen for 2 minutes and just, show something in Times of India? And actually this was behind the scenes. This was, me and my team. Don't just take credit for something that you feel you may have done a little bit of it and everybody else did. So no matter what you do, look at achievements that you have which are relevant. So a person like Pawan who's watching or like listening to you, you want people like Pawan to salivate, like side of their mouth, and like, oh, this is exactly what I want. And candidates, you have the power. You've got to step into it. And people say, yeah, I'll find my voice. You have a voice. LinkedIn is free. You don't need a paid version of it. The free version is fantastic. I had the paid version for like a month and I took it. I took it out. I didn't find any use of it. So many people don't post on LinkedIn. To be precise, 99% of people don't post on LinkedIn. It's 1% who are creating and 99% who are consuming. That is a fact. That's not an opinion. So what are you going to do about it? I've had people on my podcast who have changed their life, and I don't mean this like exaggeration. They have changed their life because they got access to opportunities they would not have had if they had not been active on LinkedIn. And I have so many examples of people who've done that really classy, smart way on how they stood out. And the best part of doing that is when you do it the right way and you do it for some time, right? You're like, oh, I did it, and for 1 month nobody's looking at me, what a way. Yeah, it takes time to build a tree, right? I mean, you plant the seed, you put water, you put fertilizer. You can't expect apples tomorrow, right? But people who do this consistently and do it well, and they do not attach the ego to the outcome. I only got 2 likes, man. What a let me delete it. Okay, we've all been there. We're human. We have a fragile ego. Just leave it. Podcast. Anybody who's got a podcast or a YouTube channel, oh, 20 subscribers. Oh, nothing. Oh, it takes time. Everyone starts from zero. So if you do this over a period of time, my point is, a person like Pawan or somebody who's like, this person's quite active on LinkedIn, and you do that, that is your portfolio. And they don't really need your resume. If you're so convincing, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Instagram, whatever your platform of choice is, because everyone is different, like, these are original thoughts. This is not a retweet or a share, like a Harvard Business Review article. No. I'm talking original thought, your thoughts. Then it's so much easier for a company to say, yeah, I need to meet this person.
Yeah, and I think that will just help the organization, or let's say the client, also to know who you really are as a person, right? Because we just don't want somebody who is just 24/7 talking about. I think today it becomes very important as to how you are as a person also, not just your skills, not just how you can use Adobe softwares or whatever, any other softwares, but how you are also as a person, your soft skills, how do you communicate with other team members and all of those things, because the team culture also and how team bonding has become really, really important, especially when it's remote working.
Yeah, it's always been important. It's become more important because people have realized the value of self-awareness and emotional intelligence when they see the high achievers who don't do well in the company, because IQ is very high. EQ is a problem. And the EQ is the thing that makes a difference between a good leader and a great leader. So people have realized that, and they're like, okay, let's take time, get to know this person a little bit. It's very expensive, like I told you, to hire the wrong person and spend time and then let them go, fire them or whatever. So it's better for companies to get that correct right out the gate.
Yeah. One very relevant question here in the comment section, where Sonam is asking, hi, I'm looking for a stable job in content writing where I am most rejected of number of experience. I mean, I think what she's trying to say is,
I think she means no experience, right?
Where I am most rejected. Okay, but what I wanted to grab from this question was what to do when you actually don't have experience of, let's say, content writing or graphic design or, let's say, website development, whatever, but you're still looking for jobs, or let's say part-time or freelance work, anything of that kind. How do you really get that job or that freelance gig when you have no experience and when you are just starting out, right? Because everyone starts out somewhere. So how do you really get a gig or a job when you're just starting out?
This is a great question, Sonam. So, Sonam, I'm a little bit older to you guys, right? So I started working in the year 2000 and internet was so brand new. We still had dial-up. This question made a lot of sense then. This question, I'm going to call you out and I'm going to tell you not to worry. It makes less sense today. And why is that? Because of access to this little, 10 by 12, whatever it is, centimeter, you have access to everything. So my favorite tip to anyone is volunteer. Look at where you are needed and go there. And they say we can't afford to pay you, doesn't matter. Tell them you're going to do a fantastic job. You're going to make them very happy. The only thing they need to tell you at the end of it, the only thing they need to give you, and that's the only thing you're going to ask them, is a strong testimonial. If you build it over a period of time, you have acquired a ton of skills, and it's free training. It's free training. You want to build a website, go to your neighborhood association or go to a friend. Somebody wants to be on YouTube, influencer, whatever. You have so much access now that you didn't have 20 years ago. And this person wants a website, or this person wants to write posts on LinkedIn, but they don't know how to write well. Say, can I be your social media ghostwriter? Give me a shot. Give me a shot for 3 months. And don't pay me. Let's say 2 posts a week. What do you say? They'll be like, it's very hard for them to say no, right? So volunteer, it's not something you're going to do forever. It's for a limited period of time. And what happens is when they see how good you are, they will refer you to people. That's a podcast guest of mine yesterday who said he did it for free for a very well-known name, big name in the US. And she referred him to 10 people. She didn't pay him, but she referred him to 10. So that more than made up for all the things he did for her for free. He was doing her videos and video for editing, and which is a very time-consuming amount of work. So anyone who, and I'm already meeting objections, Pavan, anyone who's like, well, why should I work for free? I mean, I have a certain value and I have a certain amount of self-worth. What are you doing instead? That's my question. What have you been doing instead? Might as well make some use of your time and do something really, really good with it. And it's all part of your portfolio build up, and it's gonna be one of those things that will last you for years. And guess what? You're gonna get better and better and better because you're gonna get access to real feedback. Not like you thought the post is great, but she thought it was crap. Okay, what didn't she like about it? You cannot get that feedback by living in your own head and practicing on your own on medium.com. You know what I mean? You get real feedback loop when you actually get in there and do it.
Yeah. And I think that's a very, it's also a way to build your credibility and also test the water yourself as to how really skilled you are, and can you work in an organization, how do you collaboratively work and things of that sort, especially when you're starting out and you have never worked with a team or an organization or a corporate. It's also important to understand how the dynamics work, right? To give you like a quick context about this, so I got my first job directly after my college, like the college placements. And I'm going to ask you a question where somebody was asking about placement agencies and things like that. So I came from my college, graduated and got into a job, and just 6 months, 7 months of working, and I was like, this is not for me. And I quit that job, started something of my own, did that for almost 2.5, 3 years, and then moved to being part of Pepper Content. So, but what I want to ask you here is, a lot of people also go through some placement agencies, or let's say recruitment agencies and things like that. How does that work? Should people really go through that route or not? I'm not very clear about how does that really work. Can you tell us more about that?
I think first I just want to make a distinction between placement agencies versus headhunters and executive search firms. There's a big difference. Executive search firms are for typically people who are 20, 30 years work experience. Those positions are almost never advertised. And this is one way for you to get noticed in the right circles. Placement agencies, recruitment agencies, staffing, whatever you want to call them, you have, like with everything, Pavan, you have good ones, you have bad ones, you have really bad ones. Okay. And I'll help you a little bit to understand which ones are the good ones, which are the bad ones. It's a very simple thing. One is the really bad ones. What I have noticed them doing, and I'm not saying all of them do it, is they post something on LinkedIn, job in USA, 75K annual. If you are interested, comment below with the word interested. There are like 1,000 comments with the word interested. Please don't do that. Please don't. Do not waste your time. A lot of these people are so sleazy. They're building a data bank, okay, of innocent people. And they're like, oh, we have a data, they want to show it to someone. We have data bank of 1 million. You're a number to them, right? The right ones will slide into your DMs. They'll slide into your emails. They know these conversations do not happen in public. So let's say you're somebody who's active on LinkedIn, and I saw this question: should I be active on LinkedIn? Yes. Short answer: yes.
Yeah.
We already
Yeah.
talked about it. Go and watch the replay. And they're like, oh, this is an interesting guy. I want to talk to Pawan, right? So it's not difficult in the 21st century, in 2021, to find Pawan's email address. A Google search will take care of it, or a phone number, right?
Yeah.
They will find a way to get in touch with you, and then they'll say, this is the position. So first of all, you're going to ask for the position. They'll say, oh, we can't reveal that to you. Understood. Yeah, they work in confidentiality. But if they want you to know, are you interested or not, they have to tell you the name of the company. So first of all, are they forthcoming
Yeah.
with their information? Secondly, Google them. Do they have any presence on LinkedIn? If they have nothing on LinkedIn, it's weird. A placement agency that has no presence on LinkedIn, I'm sorry. I mean, LinkedIn is all about careers and jobs. If you're not active on LinkedIn, it could be one of those sleazy firms. So should you not use? I don't think that matters. I think the destination matters a lot more than how you get there. It's like asking, should I take a Maruti Suzuki or should I take a Honda? It doesn't matter. Opportunities are going to come your way. How they come doesn't matter. What you want to care about is the opportunity right for me? That is a question which is worth answering, as opposed to placement agencies. But like I said, there'll be good ones and bad ones, and you are not a victim. You have to be smart. You're not in kindergarten, and you can't say they duped me. And another one, they placement agencies never charge candidates for their services. Never. I have seen it. Never in my entire 42 years of existence. So if they are making you pay and they're making their client pay, something weird is going on. So there are a
Yeah.
lot of signs that you can tell, but the good ones establish a little bit of a reputation for themselves, and they help out companies who don't have an HR department, or who don't have time, but they have money, so they will outsource it
Yeah.
to an agency. That's fine.
Yeah. Got it. I have, while we were talking about this, I have a typical question to ask you. And why I say a typical question, but an important question is, a lot of people want to know about this as to how should you negotiate for salaries, especially. So I can give you different, let's say, examples. One could be where you are moving from a particular job to a different organization, and maybe you want to talk about the hike that you will get or something like that. Or let's say this is your first job itself, so how do you really talk about salary? Because sometimes it becomes a little difficult to negotiate, because you like the candidate, and I'm talking here both sides of the side, like employer as well as the candidate. So both of them like each other, and the work is nice and all of it, but we are not really agreed on the salary part of it here. So how do you do that negotiation in a way, in a polite way, where it doesn't sound to be really rude
Okay.
also?
The number one reason people don't negotiate, Pavan, and to everyone who's watching, is because you have a fear. You have a fear which is specifically related to three things. It's your reptilian brain, which protects you and takes care of you. It comes from millions of years, right? And the fear says don't negotiate, because if you negotiate, number one, they'll take the job offer away. Number two, they may not like you. They'll think you're money minded, greedy. Or number three, what if they say no? I can tell you these fears are irrational and illogical. Number one, they will rescind the offer, which means they'll take the job offer away. I can tell you that's very, very, very rare that a company makes a proper contract, gives it to you, and then says we are not going to give you an offer. If they do that, the reason is usually big. Number one, recession or a pandemic,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I had it in my MBA in France, where McKinsey took away quite a few offers. Yeah, but there was a big financial crisis of 2009. Or in force majeure, so something huge happened, they took the offer away.
Yeah.
Will they take the offer away because you tried to negotiate? Two things here. They could, if you're a douchebag. You're a complete idiot. You don't know how to talk to people. You become aggressive and, conflict, and all the goodwill that you built along the way is destroyed because you did some horrible negotiation tactics. So please don't do that, because people will be like, oh, shucks. If this is what it's like to work with this person, like, I don't want him on my team. So they'll tell HR, please say no. So that's very awkward. Or the second thing could be, that you negotiated the right way, the way I teach, you do it properly, and yet they got turned off. Now, that tells you that's very rare, but that tells you there's something wrong with the culture of the company where people are not allowed to speak up, to have an opinion or to stand up for something. If that happens, I would just say run, run in the opposite direction. But fear is a big one. And the other big one is you want to know, you want to do your homework. You want to do your homework when you go into a negotiation, both the company and the candidate, because sometimes the numbers are just coming out of anywhere, pulled out of a like completely out of their head. You, as a candidate, you've got to understand, you've got to go to free online resources like Glassdoor and Payscale, and you've got to understand how much does my position make in my city, in my industry, and at my level in the hierarchy. You'll have an idea. It may look really crazy, like 45,000 per month to 1.1 lakh per month. What? That's insane. That makes no. Okay. So then you want to narrow it down. And the best way to narrow it down is by speaking with friends who are recruiters. Or if you don't have such a friend, I highly suggest you make friends who are headhunters and placement agencies and recruiters, because those people have their pulse on salary data much more than you do. They have access to salary surveys, which are very expensive because they participate in these surveys. And that will give you an idea. And I would highly recommend when you go into these negotiation these conversations, go fully prepared. Don't be worried, don't worry, you're on the same team. And that is something that has really helped people who watch my video, because the thinking we've been taught from day one is a zero sum game. I win, he loses. This is a battle. Like, I'm in it to win it. Very combative, and that's not really true. The right company, and Pawan, I know you will attest to this. It takes ages to find the right person. It takes so long, and when you find that unicorn, the last thing you want. I mean, what do you want? You want to make sure they're happy with the offer. What does the candidate want? They want to make sure they're happy with the offer. So if you think about it, you have the same goal, and you want to do whatever you can to make it work. And the other side will have some questions, some clarifications. That's absolutely fine. And you can, the person can always bring it. You can always bring it up as a candidate. Guys, don't be scared, because the worst thing they'll say is no. If you don't ask, the answer is no anyway. And you can always ask and watch the video. I use certain language, and I go through a scenario where they keep saying no, and I keep coming back, and they keep saying no, and I keep coming back. And it's like, so based on my research, Pawan, first of all, thank you so much for the offer. I really, really appreciate it. You know how excited I am to work in this company. So Pawan, I was going through the papers, and I had a couple of questions. Is it okay to ask? And Pawan will say, yeah, of course. So I see that the number here is 75,000 per year, correct? Pawan will say yes. All right. So smile. Breathe. Body is speaking 90%. You are only speaking 10%. So based on my research, Pawan, on the market data with regards to the position, the function, and our industry, I was expecting something closer to the 90 range. And then you keep quiet. When you are in the process of negotiation, the power of silence is highly underrated. Just be quiet. Just listen. Like, I'm like looking at, so if it's happening over Zoom or virtual, like I'm looking at the lens the whole time. So Pawan thinks I'm looking at him. But now I'm looking at Pawan. But the eye contact is missing. So I've been missing seeing your face, because I feel more comfortable looking at the person while talking. But when you're in the other side, these little things matter, right? So just be quiet, ask, what will they say? They'll say yes, no, maybe. You ask, you keep it sweet, keep it kind, don't destroy the goodwill. What typically happens is Pawan will go somewhere, talk to the VP or talk to HR. There'll be a little bit of drama. That's normal. It happens every single time. And they'll say, okay, the closest we can do is 80. Good. Well done. Because if the person has done if they've done their homework correctly, and that's one of the things I teach in my video, you should also know what is your bare minimum. Without that minimum, you will not come here, right? And that minimum is not, my just about survive, just pay my rent and eat enough food. No, no, no.
Yeah.
And your minimum is not okay, something that can help me to buy a house in south of France. Be realistic, right? Be realistic, find that middle ground, that this is what will be good for me, and then bring up that number. And when you have that number, my favorite tip is add a contingency of 10%, so that if they don't meet the number, and if you've built contingency, you're fine. So I'm not saying that you'll get it every time, because people are different. Every company culture is different. So apply your own style, your own charisma, bring your own facts. And like I said, I have so many interesting comments. I read every single one of them. They don't know I'm reading them. And so people are, somebody wrote today, like, the comment was like this long. And basically the guy said, this is so unfair. Why can't we just get in and they give us a great salary to begin with? Why do we have to negotiate? Why is the onus on us? We are the jobs. So that's coming from a place of complaining and scarcity. The thing with negotiation is it's a lifelong skill.
Yeah.
And we have been excellent negotiators since we were children. We just have. We're great. Look at kids today. My youngest wanted. It's so interesting. He asked my husband for a Star Wars game, a lightsaber, and no birthday, no Christmas, no Diwali, no. Anyway, just lights. And my husband said, "Okay, let me check it out." My husband's more sort of nice than I am. And he went to Amazon and he's like, 230 euros. And my husband's like, yeah, we're not doing that. And my son says, why? It's really nice. It glows in the dark. And I'm like, yeah, we know you're going to destroy this at home. It'll be broken in 2 days. And he thought about it. He comes back a few minutes later and he says, actually, you know what? I saw this game. What is it, Clash Royale or whatever, and there's a new skin for the main fighter. There's a new skin, can I buy it? And he's like, how much is it? It's 2 euros. I was like, yeah, I'll give it to you. So it turns out his strategy from the very beginning was to get the skin, but he built such a huge contingency that it was impossible to say no. I laughed when that happened, and I spoke about it on a LinkedIn Live with LinkedIn News, by the way, and that's also on my YouTube channel. And this was one of the questions that came up. Like, don't forget how good you were when you were a kid, and somewhere when we grew up, the fear happened, like real world, forget it, keep. And by the way, this is 10 times more important for women, so important for women. And I talk about it in that video as well, because it's expensive to live as a woman in today's world. Just, you go to a shop, Bhavan, you look at the same product, whether it's for men or for women. So I'll give you an example. Face cream, right? Let's be clear. It's a bunch of marketing. At the end of the day, the core ingredients in these products are very similar, whether it's for a man or whether it's for a woman. It's all marketing. But look at the difference in price. It's huge, right? You go for a haircut, men, women, anything you can think of, there's something called a pink tax. Now, when you combine that, which is, it's expensive to live as a woman in today's world, and I hope the women are feeling indignation. And if you're not a woman, you're like, you have a girlfriend, you have a wife, you have a sister, you have a mom, think. The other thing is, women live longer. Our life expectancy is longer than men in every country in the world. So you're living longer. Your money has to last longer, but it costs more to live in the present world. So you've got to negotiate.
I was going to end this with saying a lot of thank yous to you and the great tips that you have shared. But people here in the comment have already said all of those things to you, where they're talking about Navreet is saying insightful session with a lot of practical tips. Sonal, you're a breath of fresh air. Thanks for keeping it real. It was amazing. Thank you for introducing Sonal ma'am to us. This session just filled me with a lot of hope and enthusiasm. Harika is saying really something I needed today. So the audience is speaking about how the entire conversation was. But once again, thank you so much, Sonal, for giving us your time today. I know I literally consumed double of your time.
I told you I go live every week on LinkedIn, so I had blocked my full hour because I had a feeling, because as you can see, Pawan, I tend to talk quite a lot. Oh, I'm so happy to hear, and thank you so much for having me. Hopefully, when Pavan was describing it at the beginning, life changer. Hopefully, it's a fraction of that, and you'll take something useful away and apply it to your career.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone who was here for the conversation on LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever. We will keep doing this again very, very soon. And thank you so much once again, Sonal, for giving us your time today for this conversation.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Bye bye, everyone. Take care. Before you exit the app and stop listening to this video slash audio, wherever you're listening this to, I want to share this with you all that we are going to release a smaller bonus episode of this conversation on Saturday. So make sure you come back on Saturday to get that one great tip from Sonal about how to land your dream job slash dream client. And this is going to be just a 5-minute episode. We're experimenting with the format that we're doing on this show. So you're going to listen to that 5-minute episode on Saturday. Make sure that you come back on Saturday and listen to Pepper Spotlight. Again, you can watch this conversation on YouTube or listen to it on any of the audio platforms like Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, any of the Indian apps like Gaana, JioSaavn, Hubhopper. So any app you're there, just go and search Pepper Spotlight or Pepper Content and you'll find us over there. Or if not, just feel free to DM us. We'll send you a link ourselves. But till then, take care, stay safe, and stay indoors.